evening and welcome. Thank you for this great turnout to our, what we call our fifth Tuesday meeting of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. We do this, we normally don't have a meeting on the fifth Tuesday, so this gives us an opportunity to do a road show within one of our favorite communities of the North Mason area. And we are always delighted that people actually come to the road show. We try to make our agenda some items of interest to this community, so we hope that we've chosen well today. So I'm calling this meeting to order, and secondly, we need to do our Pledge of Allegiance. And Don, Katie, would you do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Yes, you. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Don. I'm glad you remembered. Now we have an opportunity for you to address the Commission and the community themselves on any items that you would like to. If you'd like to address the Commission on any items, I usually say not on the agenda, but even if it's on the agenda, that's fine. Please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Stand up and speak loudly, and then we'll all get to respond if appropriate. Yes.
The microphone's over there, so.
Oh, are those mics? They're not mics. Okay. Okay. Herb.
Okay, I'm Herb from Belfair. I have a concern about the Commission micromanaging too much. You know, this is a deal that I thought is happening lately. There's been a big turnover of people, and that's having come through industry and working, including the government. All I can say is micromanaging is not good for anybody. Not good for the business, not good for the management, definitely not good for the public. And I would urge you to, you know, at first I thought it was only me, and I saw the words in the paper too. And I said, well, I guess I'm not the only one that's making this observation. So I urge you not to micromanage and to go compromise, because if you don't compromise, you know, you lock horns, everybody loses. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the Commission? Mr. Van Buskirk.
Hi, Commissioners. Thanks for coming up. Started doing this a few years ago, and I really appreciate it. I wanted to talk, I just found out last evening that the new senior centers are having some issues with the development regs and landscaping with their place. And I serve on that committee that you appointed to look at the sub-area plans and the development regs for both Allen and Belfair. And I don't think we're going to meet the timeline to provide input to the comprehensive plan this year. And if we do, it won't help these folks out now with what's going on there. I would encourage you, I've suggested it before, but I'd like you to consider reappointing a Belfair sub-area planning group that can weigh in on things at a periodic basis so that we don't wait 10, 15 years to update our plan, because things have changed considerably when we first drew up the plan, and I'd like to just suggest that for you folks to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you referring to a permanent sub-area planning group?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the Commission? Monty.
Oh, hey, my name is Monty Ritter, and I'm on the Mason County Park Board. And I have to say, and this is really, you know, especially this group. Hi, Linda. Listen, what we have is, the Mason County Park Board, Mark, we have a lot of things that we try to reach out there to everybody in the county for. And One thing we don't have right now is, several of the people that used to be our park board members from the Belfair area are no longer on. Mike Siproff and Kendi Myers, and I could name Susan Baker and several others. They're no longer with us. We need to get a little bit more reinforcement up there on the Mason County Park Board. And I know that Randy, has reached out to some people, but anybody feels the urge. It is a great way of knowing how you can bring forth what's going on in your tiny part of the world and make Mason County listen to it. And it really is, the stuff we're talking about tonight is the stuff that you would have sat there and and been the lead factor on. So anyways, if anybody feels like they have that kind of community spirit and want to join, I would recommend that you apply to the Mason County Commissioners and become a Mason County Park Board member. We have 3 positions available, and I'd like to see 2 of them come from the North Mason County area. So we've got a lot of good things going up here, and we need to have people who knows what's happening, be able to give the input. And I know it just depends on you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Monty. I echo that. Please consider. Is there anybody else that would like to address the question? Sir.
Danielle,
ma'am, I'm
Peters Lindsay. I'm actually speaking on behalf of the Civil Service Commission at the moment. I would encourage you commissioners to come and join our meeting on the 3rd Thursday of the month. There's been a lot of eye-dotting going back and forth as far as the Sheriff's Department, who's hiring, who's not. I would give you guys just a little bit of an input on, or a vision on how long it does take to hire an officer and why they aren't being hired as quickly as the public thinks they should be. So I would just encourage you guys to please, one of you come sit in on the meeting. It doesn't usually last longer than an hour, but it just gives you guys an idea of what we're going through as commissioners that you've appointed to be there to get people in to fill those open positions in the Sheriff's Department. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you for your service on the Civil Service Commission. We sure appreciate it. Is there anybody else that would like to address the commission? Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for this. And doors always open, emails, phone calls, however you want to address us, please do so. Now I'd like to invite Michelle Britton up to come give us an update on the widening project on Highway 3. Michelle's with the Department of Transportation and is the project manager for this project.
Hi, everybody. I took a little, wrote down a few notes here so that I don't forget what I'm trying to talk to you about. I get nervous, so bear with me. We started construction in August of 2015. That's for the highway project. I know you guys have been dealing with construction a lot longer than that, with all the utility relocations and sewer stuff, and I recognize that. Unfortunately, that started real late in the season. August is not exactly ideal time for starting, but because of the water line, we had to wait. So what we've completed so far, a lot of it's off the roadway, so you can't see it, and you may not know that it's done. At the library, there's 2 walls that have been built there. One, you can visibly see where we've widened. It's covered, I think, with plastic right now. One is perpendicular to the roadway, right adjacent to the library, and that was meant to hold up one of our ponds. So there's a second wall at the Byerly Drive, which you probably know that as the sheriff's station there. So that one is complete. And then we have a wall next to Roselle Road that is complete. It's actually next to the Golden Bell. There's a small field there where they have their green field, and so that one is done. That is, how many walls was that? 4. We have 4 walls that are currently under construction, and you may have seen it if you've peeked over the barrier. They're at the Masonic Lodge there. There's 2 walls that are right next to the roadway that I think are the actual walls on 3 are done, but they're building the driveway down into the lodge right now. There's 2 walls on either side of that driveway, and so that's what they're currently working on. And then there's one more wall on the opposite side of Roselle Road. So you probably noticed if you've driven down Roselle Road lately, they bermed up kind of the embankment there because only one side is up. So when they go on the other side of Roselle, they'll build that wall and then they'll be able to rebuild Roselle Road. There's still a lot of drainage to put in. They've barely touched the drainage in the quarter. And the reason for that is we have had just tons of rain this year. And our ponds have not functioned like we thought they were. Groundwater is extremely high compared to the testing that was done. And so I had to put the contractor on suspension and the ponds are their critical work. We're still able to work on some of their walls while they're on suspension, but we just pulled them off suspension on Monday. So we've lost quite a bit of time to the ponds, and they're still under design, redesigned to accommodate that high groundwater that we didn't account for. So you'll notice, I don't know, Pond A is right next to the library. Okay, so that's Pond A. And if you look at that pond site right now, there's 3 red tanks out there. We had those brought in the last couple of weeks and piped together, and they're going to having those there is going to allow us to move forward. They're going to be able to pipe the water into those and make sure it gets treated before it goes into Mindy Creek. The wetlands are on the back side of that pond, which go into, I think, Mindy Creek. Ken probably knows better than I do that. The water's got to be clean when it leaves the site. And so now that those are there, we were able to take them off suspension and they can go forward. The next thing that they need to do is pull the old water line out of the roadway. And that's going to be challenging because there's not a lot of good records on the old water line. Usually when you pull a water line out, you have like a lot of valves that you can know where it's at. And we don't have that, and this is an asbestos pipe, so that's going to be a challenge. And the crews that were working out there for Secantee, that's our contractor, they're going to be back next week. So even though they're off suspension, they still only have their wall contractor out there. But once the crews for Secantee get back, then we're going to be able to start working drainage and the water line removal. But they have to go from those vapor tanks out. So that's where I expect them to come next. Let's see, what else do I have in here? I thought you guys might be interested in the striping. I did get a phone call from a lady that was telling me it was pretty dark. She just was having trouble seeing it, and I think just all the utility relocations and everything, it kind of just, you get that much dirt on the roadway, it just kind of scrapes it off. So we did have our maintenance office come out and go through and stripe. So hopefully that's working for everybody. The Romance Hill Culvert's probably the other one that is upcoming. We thought we were going to get that in this year. But with the high groundwater, contractor doesn't want to risk putting that in, pulling the road up across 3 and then having all that water. So we have the culvert on site. I don't know if anybody's seen it. There's big concrete pieces sitting kind of right there. That's our Pond B site that the culverts are at. And I really think that that's going to happen here in the next couple months. That's part of the reason that the speed limit was lowered to 25. When we put that culvert in, we're going to have to shift traffic one way and then shift it back the other way to put the other half of the culvert in. So, and that's going to be kind of sharp curve. So it'll be really helpful to have a 25 mile per hour speed limit. The other reason we want that speed dropped right now is because the barrier that you see at both Roselle Road and Masonic Lodge is pretty close to the shoulder. So until those get moved out, I don't expect that speed limit to go back up. I've had a lot of calls about that, but that is why it has been lowered. So I know the last thing is probably everybody's wondering, well, what does this mean to the schedule? Here we are. We haven't seen a lot of work in the roadway, and we have all of our drainage left to do, all the sidewalk left to do, most of the widening. So I asked the contractor to see what they could do to reschedule work. since we just came off suspension, they haven't, they just, that's the date that they have to look at. And so their original schedule actually showed them out there paving in 2017. That was the original schedule. So the first thing they're going to do is see, can they add Saturday work, another crew? What can they do to try to bring it back to the original schedule so that we're still putting that final lift of pavement on in 2017 and early, when the paving window opens. So that's the first thing they'll do. The second thing though is they find that that's just too much work to do. They'll probably try to do a combination of putting some more work into it, and it'll still move out in 2017. So I think it's probably going to be a combination of the two, but either way, we were always paving in 2017. We just might be doing a little more paving. We're also working around some fish windows. So at Romance Hill, the culvert and the stream can't get hooked up to Mindy Creek until July. So even if they were to put in the Romance Hill culvert and dig the stream, they couldn't make that final connection until they have a window where the fish aren't running in the creek. So that's probably going to push them to waiting so that they do all the work and they hook it up right when the fish window opens. That's what I suspect will happen when they reschedule. And then up at the north end at Belfair Creek, we also have a fish window we're working around. So they kind of have to hit certain things at certain times, and that kind of makes it challenging for them. And that's what I have. I can answer questions, though.
Yeah. Michelle, you have two things. One, what's suspension? I'm not familiar with
So a suspension is where you tell them they have to stop work on certain things. And we were having problems with the ponds. We were like raising stuff up on the fly, like telling them, okay, well, raise the bottom of that pond 4 feet to try to stay out of the groundwater. And we were just having a lot of problems with so much groundwater, so much rain, and I stopped them from working. And that was their critical work. And so because it's their critical work, you suspend them. It's called a suspension. And
So it doesn't count against them on time.
It doesn't count against them on time,
Yeah, okay.
which
That's
means
what I'm
it
curious
will
about.
push out the number of days that the contract has.
So the other thing is that you're going to adjust times and days of work and all that. How's it going to impact daytime, nighttime work, things like that?
That is not going to be changed. What may change, they may come back and say, right now your contract says we can only work south of Romance Hill. They've already asked me, can we move that north to the two-way left turn lane? And that's logical, it makes sense. But, they may also say, hey, we need to add another crew working from south to north at the same time we're working, north to south or whatever, to try to get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you anticipate the construction being kind of during the height of summertime with lots of traffic? I'm a fire commissioner, so there's, response vehicles going through there. We already have a traffic backup as it is, so where do you see, especially when you're talking about diverting traffic and having one way or at least having a little bit of S-curves in there, where do you think will be kind of the height of summer?
So the S-curves that I was talking about is just at Romance Hill.
Okay.
And so literally it will be maybe a week in one direction, move back over, a week in the other direction, no more of that.
Okay.
And you'll still have 2 lanes of traffic, but it's going to be narrow lanes, barrier right there, not how we like to have our highways. Nighttime work, you can't drive down there, you can't close a lane during the day and expect anybody to get in. That is not going to change. We're not going to allow them to work in the day. They can work off the shoulder in the day, which still, as you know, is a big distraction to people. So that will not be changed. We will still require them to work at night when they have to close the line.
Thank you.
Herb?
There's stormwater retention ponds. Just from casual observations, the important. The concern on the Lower Hood Canal Watershed Coalition, we had a concern over the Golden Bell Trail trailer park, that drain field. What is gonna happen with that drain field once you do the road and the water level's going to change, the groundwater level's gonna change because of all the wall and everything, and they may experience a problem with that drain field. Are you gonna be responsible for that?
I don't believe the groundwater is going to change because of the wall, but we have had a report done, and somebody came out and looked at everything beforehand. A consultant, we hired a consultant. They came out, they reviewed the ground, made sure there was no effluent, actually already at the ground level. And then now that the wall is built, they need to go back out, re-inspect, make sure that there was no damage. We're not expecting there to be any difference.
And with the Romance Hill culvert, now, you're saying you're not gonna tie it into Mindy Creek till next year?
Till July,
Till,
this year.
oh, July, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was concerned about, once you make that culvert, all the runoff from the hill's gonna come through there, you ain't gonna keep it back. It's
Well,
gonna go.
I'm very, very familiar with the runoff on that hill. We actually, right now, it is in a culvert. You notice it's not running in the ditch right now. It's in a culvert, and it's kind of in a different path than it normally is. So we're actually eager
Okay,
to.
as long as you've got that tie into Mindy Creek before the rainy season starts.
Yeah, well, it will be tied in July.
Okay.
Yeah, July, August, whenever that window is. Yes.
Did I hear
Sorry,
you
don't know
say
your name.
correctly, Chris Klessman, sorry. Did I hear you say correctly that the county is doing the water line removal and not
No, we
water
are.
district? Oh, I'm sorry.
We are doing the water line district. We have an agreement with Belfair Water,
Okay.
because it didn't make sense for them to try to pull it out during their construction. It would have completely destroyed the roadway because it's all over the place. We were already going to completely destroy the roadway. We didn't want to do it twice.
So it's the
So-
same construction company you're dealing with everything else, not like they have to wait and do this?
No,
and this?
nobody's waiting
Okay.
to do it, no. In fact, the last job my office had a provision where PSE came in and did some stuff, and it's never good to have be, reliant on somebody else, so this is a much better way of doing it. Hi, Ken.
So I have a couple of questions. Has the DOT done any modeling on what the traffic flow is going to be like on the unfunded portion of the widening?
I know that early on, like 2004, the job was one job.
Right.
And they may have done one model at that time, but I don't know for sure. I can find out for you, Ken.
Well, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that until that second phase is done, it's not really going to improve congestion. It's just going to move it closer to 106. And that's a really bad place for the project right now. Stop it right there, neck down.
Well-
That was just a question. I was curious if they've looked at what the traffic flow is going to be like in that piece. The second question I had was, you said something about Roselle Road fixing it. Are you talking about just the
So if you go out
ingress
there-
and egress off of, or are you doing something with the whole road?
So if you look at what it looks like today, if you go out there, you'll see they've got ecology blocks, and they're retaining about a foot of fill right on the corner, around the corner. So to widen out, when you widen out 3, you widen it out, and what it does is it makes it, there's a fill on Roselle, so they have to be able to transition back to the existing road elevation, which means we go down Roselle, I don't know, 100 feet or something.
Okay.
And repaving it.
I misunderstood what you meant. My last question, I talked to you a couple weeks ago about the
Water wheel.
the conceptual park there at Sweetwater Creek, and you said that you had been forwarded plans for that.
Yeah, it's real old, but yeah.
When did you get those plans?
Oh, it's been months. I've had them for a very long time. It's just the
well,
concept plan. is
Like
that.
I mentioned to you, And there's a piece of paper up there that looks like a legislative assistant to Senator Sheldon left about that site still being an ecology site. And you said that you're gonna, DOT's putting
One pipe through there, yeah.
stormwater. They encountered, when they removed a couple of the underground storage tanks that were there, they encountered groundwater in September.
Not surprising out there.
Do you have any kind of, well, you said you weren't even aware that there was a site there.
No, I didn't, and if you go on to DOE site, it's not listed. And I went on to DOE site after we talked, and the site I get, it's in the paper, the one that was listed in the paper. Actually, if you go into it and you click on the link, it takes you to SR 300. And so I'm going to have to talk to somebody at DOE.
In any case, I hope you have some sort of contingency plan, because I remember what happened when they did the sewer line and ran into a bunch of contaminated soil. It was a huge cost overrun, and I don't.
Well, we already know we're going to go through some stuff up near Belfair Creek.
Right.
And across the street at CBEC. And so our contractor's already working with DOE on a plan to either take the soil somewhere if it tests as, having hydrocarbons, or, because I think it's all hydrocarbons up there, or the water, both of those things. So they're working on that plan. If I find out there's a piece down south, they'll have to add that to that plan, and you're right, it will be an extra cost to the job.
It's a much older
but
site.
It's already, we already have that kind of work in the job, so it's not going to be a huge cost increase, because we already know we have it.
I just wanted you to be aware it's a much older site, 30s and 40s versus, the one at the subway and that other one were in the 70s and 80s. So.
I don't know, the 30s and 40s stuff might actually be better, because
in any
if you think
case,
about it, that it was all, well, other than the lead. It's all hydrocarbons that,
But they did
volatile.
find that they might have been used after that, because they found some of the chemicals that were in the newer gas leak. So I just want you to be aware. You might grab that note that's up there on the table.
I don't think there's any more. Oh.
From
Here.
Suzette Cooper. Thank you.
This is a report on the status of the land.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate you being here each and every time we ask. That's helpful. Well, speaking of Sweetwater Creek, we've invited Mindy Harlow with the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group to present to you folks a conceptualization and a proposal for a park and trail combination at the Sweetwater Creek and water wheel location. So, once you get that set up, we'll hear more about that.
I also have, if anybody is interested or if there's time, a presentation that I gave last week at the Port of Allen related to the cleanup work that was done with the underground storage tanks. So I don't know that there's time for that, but if there's an interest, then I can pull that up. I know that there's a computer over here and a screen projector. Sorry.
I think at the very least, probably an update of what the status is regarding the cleanup.
Yeah. So I also have some, I didn't realize there were going to be 3 people, but I did print out conceptual designs for anyone who would like to take them home. So just to start out with a little bit of history on the project site. So this, just to get everybody oriented, Highway 3 is out here, Belfair Elementary is up here, and Feller is across Highway 3 from where this new proposed park is going. So back in 1997, the property itself was acquired by the North Mason School District, partially through a DNR Aquatic Land Enhancement Account grant, and partially donated by a doctor who owned the property. So it was about a half and half type of donation. So in 1997, it was acquired to kind of further recreation opportunities throughout North Mason and educational opportunities for kids at the North Mason School District. So it was kind of meant to tie into some of the recreational activities that we already had here. So then in 2008, a group of folks got together and started conceptualizing this park here. So restoration of the water wheel so that we could show kids how hydropower is created. And then that design at the time also included salmon passage around, similar to this one. So salmon passage around the pond. But at the time, we kind of determined that we would need an additional parcel here. So the Schindelheide property is the bigger parcel, but then there's a cutout of it that was owned by another landowner. So we couldn't move forward with the project at that time because we didn't have access to that other parcel. The landowner wasn't willing to sell at the time, and we didn't have money to buy that parcel at the time. So the project kind of stopped. So then a few years back, the idea was revived again. And actually just this past fall, this parcel was foreclosed on, and there was a local community member, Dr. Brian Peterson, who purchased that parcel so that we could move forward with the project. So now this is the new conceptual design, and it includes the restoration of the water wheel, where we'll have kind of a landing pad there where kids will be able to learn about hydropower and how it's important to our economy and to the history of our region. There's also a restroom here at the top of the parking lot. The restroom has solar panels on top, and there will be power stored in a Tesla Powerwall so that kids can learn about solar energy, and there will be a meter right there next to the Tesla Powerwall showing when there's solar power being absorbed by the panels, it will make the meter run backwards. The path around the pond is ADA accessible, so we're really excited about that opportunity there. There's a landing pad up here that is kind of an overview of the pond, and then another one here that overviews the water wheel. And then there's also an ADA accessible fishing dock on the south side of the pond. That's actually the only one I know of that's being proposed or that would exist in Mason County if this project ends up moving forward. We also have a picnic area and a natural playground. So a natural playground meaning there are logs to climb over and stumps to crawl on and rocks and things. So more natural materials than what you'd find at a playground that has more fabricated materials. So we proposed this project to the North Mason School District a few times over the last few months. And it's been kind of put on hold for a little while again. The school district isn't really in the business of having another park, don't want to have another park, and so we're looking to other organizations that can take the park on, take the property on. The grant that was used to purchase the property can be transferred to another government organization. So it could be transferred to the port, it could be transferred to the county, it could be transferred to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we've approached the port, and the port has shown interest in that possibility. So one other kind of bump that has come up in the road recently too is that, the history of the site here with the gas station that used to be located here where the parking lot is being proposed. So back in 2003, we did a targeted brownfields assessment where we applied to EPA to have the site assessed to see if there are any toxins on site. So we proposed not only this side of the road, but also the other side of the road, because at that time, we were actually interested in building the Salmon Center up there on Highway 3. So we went through that assessment, did find that there were likely 5 or 6 underground storage tanks on the property, the collective properties. And so we were automatically qualified for cleanup funds through EPA. So we went ahead and hired a contractor, removed, we did find 2 storage tanks, none on the opposite side of the road. They were both on this side of the road on the Schimmelheim property. We removed those in the summer of 2007, and then we installed monitoring wells on the site to test the water to find out if there are any contaminants in the water, in the groundwater, or in the soil in the area. So those storage tanks were located right here on the southwestern end of the parking lot. They're gone now, but the place where they were located is there. So what we found when we did the groundwater monitoring was that there were elevated levels of arsenic in the groundwater. But we had done quite a bit of research, and our consultant did research to determine that there are naturally occurring elevated levels of arsenic in groundwater and soil in this region. So we wrote a report, sent it into EPA, and they signed off on the grant, and it was closed, and we thought that all was well and we had done everything we needed to do. Well, we did receive communication earlier this year that indicated that this is still listed on the cleanup site list and that it needs to be taken off the state cleanup site list. So we had the federal government telling us one thing, and there was some state level that never got checked off. So right now we're working with the Department of Ecology to get that resolved. We will likely have to go back and take some soil samples in the area and just verify that those levels of arsenic in the soil are below what they would need to be in order to have to be taken off the cleanup list. So, you know, we kind of have future plans of possibly having this be a trailhead for a regional trail system. Not quite ready to talk about that, but just want to kind of give everybody the idea and share that, you know, I think it would be a really good thing for our community. It would really draw a lot of folks from around the region to hike in our area. We already have, you know, the Feller Trail system, which is a draw to the area, and we really need some more recreation opportunities in this area. So with that, I'll ask for any questions, if there are any questions.
Okay, I have the comment you've heard before,
Yes.
but now that Michelle is here, let her listen to it.
Yes.
If this goes on, the crosswalk we have at the elementary school,
Yeah.
I think logic would tell me it would move to the south, adjacent to the parking lot where the water wheel is.
Oh.
Well, so that people can park on the Feller side and walk across without having to jog down back.
Right.
It makes more sense to me, and right now with the road construction, this would be the ideal time to go move that crosswalk.
Yeah.
I don't think the school would have a problem with it now that they've redesigned their landscape in that area.
Yeah, that was brought up to me a couple of weeks ago at a meeting, and my comment was, well, I think that ship has sailed, but maybe you can answer that better than I can.
Well, I know that we're doing some work at that. I mean, that's an existing signal you're talking.
Right.
There's a signal pole, and the only thing that we're doing there, we're not moving it or anything, is we're adding video detection.
Oh.
So there won't be the button anymore. It'll see a bus and then turn it on so that the video, well, wait a minute, I'm confused. Is that the same location where they have the buses come out?
Yes.
Okay. So I would think that you'd still need that. The buses
Right.
would still need that. So I don't
So
know
there'd have
that
to
that's
be
a
two
good
signals
solution.
rather than one, so I think.
There's not going to be two signals though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
no.
too much.
So, sorry, Herb. So, but they can still walk down, there's a sidewalk here, so the sidewalk ends at the north end of this parcel, so they could still walk on the sidewalk down to the crosswalk and over to Bella. So, yes.
So was this not meant to be like a salmon enhancement project, like an owned project?
Yeah, I guess I left that out. So, the water wheel right now prevents any salmonids from making it back into the spawning grounds of Sweetwater Creek. Our project is proposing a new channel that goes around the pond so that so we've been releasing 120 salmon fry at an incubator that's up here as part of the Salmon in the Classroom program at Belfair Elementary. So we've been releasing those salmon all these years, and they get stuck down here. And so it will provide access for those guys to get back up into the spawning ground. So that's a neat component of this project that I left out. So thank you.
But I was just kind of wondering, so are you looking for partners, or are you looking for someone to actually basically buy the project? Because who maintains it over perpetuity?
Right, so we are working with the port. If the port ends up being the owner of the property, then we would work with the port to sign a memorandum of understanding so that the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group would take on that maintenance of the site over time.
The
Yeah.
crossing of 3 of Sweetwater is also listed as a barrier.
Yes.
I don't know if you knew that, but
Yeah.
that is in stage 2, if that gets funded. And I know Senator Sheldon actually called me today because he wasn't sure he was going to make it, and he's been trying to get that funded. That's a pretty,
Yeah.
pretty
So,
big chunk of money.
I know it's listed as a barrier, but fish get right below.
It's
the
not
water.
100% barrier. I don't know what the percentage is on it.
Right. So it has, just so you guys all know, it doesn't have a gravel bottom, it has a concrete bottom, and all of the gravel that was in there when it was put in has been washed out in high flow events. So pretty much salmon have to get in there and swim straight through the culvert, which during high flow events can be pretty rough on them. But above that culvert, there's really only about a 100-foot stretch of spawning habitat right now, if you'd call it that. So now with this project, when it's completed, they would be able to access all of the upper Sweetwater Creek watershed. And right now in that creek there is the fall chum that we've been releasing, and then there's also coho salmon that utilize the lower end of that creek. Yes?
Mindy, can the salmon, if they get up into that new channel you're talking about, can they get above the incubators?
They should be able to get above the incubators, yes.
Uh-huh.
So,
It didn't look like there was a way they could because there's where the water comes into the incubators, there's another dam there.
so where this comes in, so you're talking about the water that goes into the incubators? There
Yes.
is currently a, what do you call it? So it's a backwater area where water flows over an intake, and
Right.
the intake sucks water in and then it
Can the
goes to the
salmon
incubator.
get
The
above?
salmon that would use that habitat can, so coho salmon can get beyond that incubator intake,
But
yes.
I thought the original plan was to put coho in that pond.
So we wouldn't be putting coho in the pond, no. So this, so there's going to be a fishing dock here, and the pond would be stocked with rainbow trout.
No,
So it
I
would be,
meant the original acquisition called for coho in that pond and not trout.
not that I know of.
Well, you might want to relook at it because
Okay.
that's what they were planning.
And even, I mean, you have to correct me, Dana, but even if it was stated in the original grant that maybe they would put coho in the stream, it's not allowed by state law to introduce coho to this stream artificially. So there's, so the Skokomish tribe and the Department of Fish and Wildlife co-manage coho and summer chum in our area, and they pretty much don't allow people to incubate coho anymore. So.
But I was under the understanding they're not real keen on incubators to begin with.
Oh, they are if they're education driven. So this project it's all related to the third grade salmon in the classroom curriculum that we've been doing since 1994. So it's an education project. So yeah, I mean, there were times in the past when there have been way too many incubators throughout the Hood Canal, and this one is not one of the ones that was cut from the list because it is primarily for education purposes.
What was the number of salmon being released every year, and what kind are you releasing?
We're releasing fall chum, and
Fall chum,
it's about 120,000 eggs that we put in there. We don't count them all.
Yeah.
It's based on weight, so
Yeah.
we get an average based on how much the eggs weigh together. Any other questions?
I have a question regarding the formerly contaminated site.
Yeah.
From what my understanding, first of all, is it a pervious or impervious surface you're planning for the parking lot?
So what's being planned here is pervious.
Okay.
So, but when I was talking with the Department of Ecology about it, they were recommending that we plan for a impervious site if we find
That's what I was
elevated
wondering.
levels of arsenic in the soil.
And there wouldn't be an issue or potentially no issue of leaching into the pond? Or
No, this is below. So the pond is about probably 14 feet above the parking lot. So there's no way it could leach into the pond. part of what I've been talking with the Department of Ecology about is sampling the water in the creek too. We did water sampling in the creek back in 2007 and 2008, and you can find elevated levels of hydrocarbons or arsenic in the creek.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, this is all conceptual at this point, so the parking lot surface could be changed anytime.
As much as we would like to see impervious, sometimes it's a good thing, huh?
We'd have to, infiltrate on site somewhere, the stormwater from the parking lot, but we would just have to work that into the plan.
Okay. Any more questions for Mindy? Well, look, my feeling is that conceptualization is phenomenal and very exciting, but probably most importantly, downtown Belfair needs a park. And I thank you very much for your efforts towards this, and I think this could go a long way to meeting that need for active recreation as well as a restroom for the traveling public.
Yeah, this would be hooked up to sewer. Right now, the one across the road at Eller is not hooked up to sewer, so this one would be open to the public and available. So.
And aside from the ADA trail, that's also an ADA fishing dock. So imagine being able to have somebody that has a disability be able to go and use that. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I have comment forms if anybody wants to fill one out. I'll leave them up here at the front.
And thank you to the Port of Allen for your consideration on this. Appreciate that. Next, I'm going to ask Commissioner Netherland to introduce the last topic on our agenda because he knows this community so well.
It's always wonderful when we get a chance to honor and recognize somebody local for some things that they've done here. Here recently, the Hood Canal Coordinating Council recognized a local group for an environmental restoration project that happened out here on the Hood Canal. The Beards Cove Community Association in conjunction with the Great Peninsula Conservancy. So with great honor, I'd like to recognize Kate Coleman and Louis Yelverton. Could you come up, please, and let them know what happened? I gave it to you.
Well, setting up, I can tell you guys this is the award that we got. It's very pretty. We're looking at putting a box together up at Beards Cove so we can put it out of our pool, which is really the only building that we have to be able to display anything right now. Okay.
So we're talking about a project that's on the North Shore, and I don't know if I don't have a big map, but this sort of shows you, this is the piece right here that we're, this whole area in here, and this represents about 700 plus acres of conserved or restored lands by various organizations and agencies in the Lynch Cove area and Cove of the Canal. We were very proud that this was the last little link in restoration and protection in this larger project that's been going on probably for, I think, about 20 years now, all told. We had the honor of working with the Beards Cove Community Organization and Great Peninsula Conservancy. We're neighbors. We had land side by side. We wanted to do we started talking in about 2011 to see how we might be able to improve salmon habitat in the Hood Canal and do some good for the Hood. And came up with an idea to do a restoration project that would benefit both summer chum and other listed species in restoring the Beards Cove site, which had been filled in 1973 with thousands of cubic yards of fill to create a park, and restore that shoreline back to its 1884 configuration to return salt marsh and riparian habitat back to more original condition. So if this is kind of hard to see, but at one time this was all part of the fill, and we've gone in and removed 46,000 cubic yards of fill and have created a new area that is high tidal marsh, probably about 70 acres of high tidal marsh and riparian shoreline habitat restored. Also, in this, the neat thing about it in working with Beards Cove is that we've also kept part of their parks, or they kept their parks so they can continue to do the passive recreation activities, walking the dog, viewing the wildlife, getting out there with their canoes and kayaks. And so there will be that opportunity as well with an ADA trail, some passive trail trail walking opportunities, and wildlife observation. But really exciting was that we had the opportunity, and I'll just say briefly, that we had the opportunity to nominate Beards Cove Community Organization, who is our partner in this, for the Hood Canal Coordinating Council's Environmental Achievement Award this year. And they received it. And so Louise was talking about getting this award. We're really pleased to have been able to do that, pleased that they were chosen. It's been a great partnership. We think this is going to be a wonderful park. We're thankfully now back on site. We're not quite done with the project. So much rain this winter, but we're back on site. We will be doing the planting of the plants that will be for restoration purposes, and also to return the site, which is now fairly bare except for some large clumps of trees, back to a more natural condition. So we'll be back in June and May and June to do that planting, and then hopefully get a chance to grow, and then we've got a wonderful restored site. Anything you'd like to say?
I couldn't have asked for a better partner. She does all the work. I get to accept the award. So I'm great with that. No, Beards Cove is just really happy to be a part. We're a small part of a big community, and I know that they've been working on this restoration project throughout the whole shore for a long time. And working with our community, it was really nice for us to be a small part of that larger project. So we were just happy to do it.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, a comment. The way I understand it, that land is owned by the Beards Cove community. It's private property.
A portion of it. The majority of the land is owned by Great Peninsula Conservancy.
Yeah.
And we do allow public access.
Right, you do, but they don't. Now, looking at it, you're the island. I mean, the only reasonable public access is on that little island up high, so it'd be dry. Is it possible, or would you consider maybe once a week or once a month allowing public access to it?
So, when this gets finished and we're done with some of the things that we're going to do on the site, I mean, it's not an impossible ask. But I wouldn't be able to say yes.
No, I understand.
Without talking to all of our community.
Yeah.
However, I mean, I don't see that it might be an impossible ask, but of course I would have to ask everybody in the community, because we're all one. We have 538 homes, so I'm a 538th owner, so I can't speak for all 537 of them without talking with them first. But I mean, I would definitely ask.
What about the potential trail?
What do you mean, potential trail?
At one point, there's discussions about bringing the trail all the way through, and they're going to discuss that with you guys, all the way from
So are you talking about the Feller?
Yeah.
So I know that they had talked about, I'm going to stand from this side. I've been involved with Beards Cove for a while in many different aspects. I'm just now the president, so I've been I hope it's good strides in our community, but I know the Feller Trail talked about bringing something through down on the shoreline. So if it did get brought in, they would do it through GPC's property and not ours. So we wouldn't really be that involved with it. And as far as it coming into our park, that would have to be something we were asked about. And again, I would have to ask for our membership. So
in part of this restoration project, which I forgot to mention, is funded with state and federal funds. But part of we purchased the 2 acres from Beards Cove Community Organization that is the shoreline and the restored high marsh. So we do own all around here as well as the shoreline. Great Peninsula Conservancy does. So I think it's an ongoing conversation, and we'll continue to have that conversation.
Your property's not accessible unless you're willing to put hip waders on.
No, we own 90 acres over on this side of it, and much of it is accessible. And at certain tides, you can walk from the Red Barn across over to Beards Cove.
Where the gate is, the old gate for the farm, is that yours or is that wildlife? I
The
believe
old
that's
gate,
why.
but with the gate with that is right there at Beards Cove?
No, the one further towards Belfair, there's another steel gate.
That's WDFW.
Yes, WDFWs. There are a couple of gates, but they're not locked, and they're behind the red barn. One of them is locked, but the other one isn't. You can get in. So
Lee-
that's to our Klingle.
Lee, did you have a question? I saw your hand. Or Don, I'm sorry, Don.
Excuse me? I didn't hear the question.
You got any Pittman and Robertson funds in there?
No.
For sure.
It was funded through RCO with Surfboard and EPA, Estuarine and Shoreline program monies.
No federal money?
Some federal money through EPA.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the project? So I'm assuming that access around the salt marshes is going to be some sort of boardwalk, or are you going to?
There is, oh, you mean this is an ADA trail, and that's the only trail, hard surface trail that will be on the site at this point. There are some soft surface trails that will be created. If we go with if we have this conversation about an extension of the Taylor Wetland Trail, then we would have a discussion about where it's most appropriate to put it and where it will be placed. We haven't had that discussion yet.
There's been a long conversation going on right now on many different things in regards to trails. There is conversations in landowners that are working on putting together a trail that goes from the bottom of Romance Hill, and it would actually cross the street. Eventually there'd be a little park there, which right now is DOT. There's some discussions, and it would maybe be a trail down to the Salmon Center. They'd go up all the way to the top of Romance Hill, go down and come down perhaps the Schittelheim property, down to the Waterwheel Park, and cross again to go to Theller. Up on the top, the idea is to get a trail that eventually could maybe go all the way down to Shelton. But on the Theller trails, it's been going on for years that they've always wanted to get a trail that goes all the way around to Belfair State Park. But there's only been a couple of parcels that are in the way, because there's a lot of other wetlands, a lot of other protected areas that have already been purchased, already been established. This is one of the missing pieces that would make that perhaps possible. And it could be a pretty exciting thing, and a big thing for Belfair, you can imagine, with trails like that. Bringing a lot of people, a lot of money into the community.
Well, okay, I'm on the Mason County Park Board, and I'm just dismayed that we're being bypassed. I'm sorry, but on Mason County Park Board, we came out with a comp plan that includes many of these components to it, and I'm really surprised. And I know that we have a lot of things going on, but we really think, I'm sorry, but I'm just speaking myself, but you should come to the Mason County Park Board. We can help you guys out and make this thing easier, because we want to be the part that goes to the commissioner, so they don't have to start from the ground up every time. We want to come to them with everything laid out, saying, okay, yes, and they go for it. And instead of having you guys go to them piecemeal. I think the Mason County Park Board is getting a little bit shafted.
Well,
I'm happy to say that I'm happy to work with as many partners as possible here, and I would love to work with the parks board here and the parks department.
Some of the plans are talking about from 2009 that were established many, many years ago.
That's right.
It's not just out of the sky.
I know, and I've been part of that.
So the first time we were approached, it was actually by Fish and Wildlife. Fish and Wildlife brought GPC into it, and this was the second time Beards Cove has actually been approached by Fish and Wildlife. Before that, it was, I want to say 8 or 10 years before they had come to us a second time, because our community essentially ran them out the door. We're not even open to the discussion. We don't want to have any part of that. We want all of our part. So the second time they came back, we were more open to restoration and
Way back when we were trying to come into compliance with the Growth Management Act, before our commissioners here are with us, I'm working with these guys, we were not in compliance. Mason County had a moratorium. We still have a moratorium, I understand, here in Belfair, where you can't subdivide your property. All these things are things that inhibit growth. and we have to come together and figure out a way to do that. And the only way we can do this if we work as a community, and we should have people come into the Mason County Park Board when you want to come up with a parks plan, because not only does it show the state and everybody else that we are together with this plan, and that gives us, if you're going to go out for a grant, and you're going to say, and you want to come do it, and you say piecemeal, there's other components, they're working with Mason County, and we're not coming through. We need to be one voice, and then they say, wow, this is the group we want to work with. These two commissioners are really awesome, and we haven't had this, and we have to take advantage while we have them in office. I seriously believe that. You guys have done, they've shown up at our park board meetings, nobody else ever did, okay?
I didn't know there was a park.
Okay, so, okay, thank you, Monty. Monty, thank you.
If that helps you.
I've been pulling my hair out, and I don't have much left.
Okay, we're happy, we would love to partner and work with you.
Mindy is showing up at our park
I
board.
guess what I'd say about this is that well, I'll have to just let you know, your former head of parks was
John
on,
Keats.
yes, was on our board of directors, so we've had communication with you, so, in the past, so, but I would love to partner with you in any way, and you can give me your card.
I'll give him my card.
Okay.
John
Please do.
Keats is
I
on our
wanna say-
professional advisory committee
So
for
I
our
wanted to
Friends of the
say
Park.
that this was really between two neighbors who are private property owners, and as we begin to talk about this as part of the larger regional plan, I think it's really important that we all talk together.
And we have to be one voice, because then we're so much
Totally agree.
stronger.
I totally
Thank you
agree.
guys
Okay.
very
Thank
much.
you. We
Appreciate it.
Ken?
I just wanted to echo what you just said, Kate, that it has to be one voice, because I can see right now there's a memorandum of understanding between the school and WDFW over the duck blinds that are currently down there, and that's set to expire. And that's one of the most common complaints I hear walking down on the trails is, why are those people out there hunting? And so there really needs to be some education, not only the users that use the trails, but WDFW has to do a job of, I mean, that's part of the reason why Roselle Road was abandoned, was to put those duck blinds in there.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much, and congratulations. Thank you for your example of working.
Very pretty. We loved it. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, is there anything else for the good of the order? Anything you want to say? No. Well, once again, thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Hope you learned something. Obviously, Monty did. And I think the big takeaway is communicate, communicate, communicate. So do your best to do that, to get the word out about the things you know about what's going on in this community. And thank you for being here.
You know,
We are
take
adjourned.
advantage of these guys. See the community commissioners up here who listen to us, and I like these guys, so, you know, that's the best we can get.
Sorry to say that.